The Valari tribunal chamber smelled like polished marble, ozone, and the disappointment of several very bored aliens who clearly wished they were somewhere else. Cale Mercer stood alone in the center of the circular platform, hands bound, chin lifted in the exact way one does when pretending not to care about the 10-foot guards with glowing spears on either side. Above him, in a crescent arrangement of silver thrones, the long-eared judges watched with the detached fascination of scholars observing an insect that had just learned to juggle. One of them, a tall male whose ears curved like elegant scythes, leaned forward. "Human Cale Mercer," he announced, making Cale's entire name sound like a tax violation. "You are hereby charged with the desecration of the sacred monument of Violathur." "It fell over," Cale said. "I didn't desecrate anything. I leaned on it for 2 seconds. The thing was wobbly. It wobbled. It's not my fault your holy relic has the structural integrity of wet cardboard." A low gasp rippled across the room. Apparently, in Valari culture, insulting the load-bearing capacity of a sacred statue was only slightly less offensive than kicking a baby. The presiding judge raised a delicate eyebrow. "You admit to touching it?" "Touching, yes. Destroying, no. It fell apart like it had been waiting for an excuse." Another judge scribbled a note as if documenting Cale's final moments. Cale wasn't sure what punishment he expected. A fine, maybe. A mandatory apology ritual. Possibly having to watch a 6-hour documentary on the cultural significance of Violathur, grueling but survivable. Instead, he received a sentence delivered with ceremonial gravity and just a dash of, "This is what happens when humans wander around unsupervised." "For your crime," the presiding judge announced, "you are hereby exiled to Obsidian 9. The guards didn't gasp this time. They simply winced, which was worse. Cale blinked. "I'm sorry, is that the place with the thing? The giant psychic monster you all refuse to describe because just thinking about it gives you nosebleeds." The judge gave a dignified sniff. "The Carath. Yes. Right. Quick question. Isn't that usually reserved for, actual criminals?" "You desecrated a sacred relic." I leaned. "Enough," the judge snapped, and the lights in the chamber flickered dramatically, probably on purpose. The Valari were huge fans of mood lighting. "You will embark immediately." Cale looked at the guards. The guards looked at Cale. Someone in the audience whispered, "At least he won't suffer long," which was not comforting. Within the hour, he was shoved into a drop pod approximately the size of a public restroom stall. It smelled faintly of old metal and newer fear. A guard placed a small data tablet on his lap. "Instructions," she said bluntly. Cale glanced down. The screen displayed a cheerful animated mascot waving as death reigned around it. The title read, "So you've been exiled to Obsidian 9, a beginner's guide to dying horribly." "Oh, excellent," Cale muttered. "Is there a deluxe version? Maybe with coupons for not being eaten?" The guard arched a long eyebrow, pressed a button, and sealed the pod. He barely had time to shout, "At least give me snacks," before the launch sequence thundered to life. A violent jolt threw him back as the pod shot into the void, leaving the Valari capital orbiting behind him like a glittering insult. Through the tiny viewport, Cale watched the stars smear into silver trails. He'd always thought space travel would be poetic and inspiring. Turns out it mostly felt like being flushed down an interstellar toilet. Hours, or maybe minutes, later, the pod rattled violently. Alarm lights strobed. A synthetic voice announced, "Atmospheric entry detected. Brace for severe discomfort and probable regret." Cale braced. He regretted everything. The landing was less landing, and more catastrophic relationship between metal and planet. The pod slammed into something hard, bounced, hit something harder, and finally came to rest at an angle that suggested physics had given up halfway through. Cale groaned, unbuckling himself with the enthusiasm of a man peeling off adhesive bandages. The hatch hissed open, and darkness poured in like a physical substance. Obsidian 9 was not merely dark, it was a depthless, swallowing black, the kind that ancient storytellers warned children about. The air carried a mineral tang, cold and sharp. Strange bioluminescent spores drifted on unseen currents, glowing faint blue like wandering ghosts. Far away, something not wind, howled. Kale stepped out cautiously. His boots sank into gritty soil that pulsed faintly beneath his weight. The pulsing stopped. Kale froze. "Okay," he whispered to no one. "No need to panic. Just the ground saying hello." A second later the ground burped. He yelped and stumbled backward, slamming into the pod. "Excellent. I've been here 60 seconds, and the planet already wants to eat me." Determined to maintain some illusion of control, he activated the wrist light built into his suit. The beam cut a thin line through the darkness, illuminating bizarre vegetation, twisted vines with crystalline leaves, bulbous fungi that glimmered like submerged stars, and, very notably, a cluster of plants that shrieked when the light touched them. Kale jumped back. Nope. Absolutely not. Plants should not scream. That's a rule. The screaming plants quieted as soon as the beam shifted away. Kale exhaled shakily, muttering, "At least they're polite about it." He decided to move before the ecosystem started filing complaints. The landscape rose in uneven ridges, obsidian cliffs jutting out like jagged teeth. Above, no stars were visible, only a thick, roiling mantle of clouds, occasionally illuminated by distant flashes of violet lightning. He walked, listening to the crunch of his boots and the uneasy silence between them. Every so often, he swore he felt eyes on him. Huge eyes. Patient eyes. Something in the dark exhaled, very softly. He pretended not to hear it. After what felt like hours, faint mechanical lights flickered through the fog, cold, sterile, decidedly unplanet-like. Kale hurried toward them, stumbling more than walking. The lights led to a half-buried structure, angular and metallic, the kind the Valari built when they wanted to pretend they weren't terrified. An abandoned research outpost. Kale approached cautiously, pushing open the warped airlock door. The interior was covered in dust, vines, and something he sincerely hoped was just mold. Dead consoles lined the walls. A cracked holodisplay flickered with static. And deeper inside, a soft, rhythmic hum. He followed it to a chamber lit by emergency power, where a single stasis pod stood upright among the wreckage. Frost clung to the glass. Inside was a woman, Valari undoubtedly, with long elven ears and delicate features, her silver hair floating weightlessly in the suspension fluid. Kale stared. Okay. Not what I expected. But sure. Why not? One frozen space elf, coming right up. He wiped the glass with his sleeve, muttering, "Please don't be evil. Please don't wake up and stab me. Please don't have a pet psychic monster. Actually, scratch that, the whole planet probably is your pet psychic monster." A console beside the pod blinked, asking for input. Kale hesitated. Then he shrugged. "Well, I'm already exiled to a death planet. Might as well add tampering with ancient alien technology to the list." He pressed a button. The pod hissed sharply. Lights flared. A low alarm beeped in a tone that suggested he had absolutely made the wrong choice. Fluid drained. The glass rose. The woman's eyes remained closed, her breathing shallow. Kale reached forward cautiously. Then her eyes snapped open, bright, iridescent, and intensely focused on him. Kale yelped. "Hi. Hello. Welcome back. I swear I didn't break anything on purpose." Her gaze lingered on him with confusion, then suspicion, then something like dawning horror. "You're human," she whispered, voice rough from stasis. "Unfortunately, yes." She stared past him toward the exit, a flicker of fear crossing her features. "If a human is here, then the Kareth must have sensed you." Kale froze. "Sensed me? Like, noticed, observed, casually marked me as lunch." Before she could answer, a deep rumble echoed through the outpost walls. Not mechanical. Not geological. Alive. Kale swallowed. Okay. That sounded close. The woman pushed herself upright, wobbling. "We need to move. Before it finds you." Kale blinked rapidly. Right. Leaving. Immediately. But, small question, what happens if it already found me? The rumble deepened, vibrating the floor beneath their feet. She met his eyes, her expression grim. "Then you will pray it's in a good mood." The outpost trembled again, dust raining from the ceiling in soft, accusing puffs. Cale grabbed the nearest stable-looking object, which unfortunately turned out to be a rusted pipe that immediately snapped off in his hands. He stared at the broken metal, sighed, and muttered, "Great. I'm fighting monsters with plumbing now." The alien woman, still unsteady from stasis but moving with growing urgency, ignored his commentary and scanned the chamber's dim corners. Her long elven ears twitched at distant vibrations that Cale couldn't hear. "The Kareth is testing the area," she murmured. "It can sense disturbances, voices, warmth, fear." Cale winced. "Well, it's definitely getting a 3-course meal from me then." She shot him a quick, sharp look. "Quiet. Humor attracts attention." "Humor attracts? Seriously? The monster hates jokes." "No. It likes them. And that's far worse." The floor groaned deeply, as if the planet itself were considering swallowing the outpost whole. Cale didn't wait for more scientific explanations. He staggered after her as she limped toward a service corridor that spiraled deeper underground. The emergency lights flickered along the curved passage, creating a strobe effect that made the walls seem to lurch. Panels had fallen away, revealing intricate Valari wiring that pulsed with faint violet currents, organic-looking, like veins carrying power instead of blood. Cale pointed at them as they walked. "Hey, your circuits are moving. That's not normal." "They're adaptive neural lines," she said. "Self-repairing. Or they used to be." She brushed her fingers across a broken link that twitched at her touch. "The base has been abandoned for decades. The lines sleep when no one uses them." "Great, so the whole building is basically tired and cranky," Cale said. "We'll get along perfectly." At the end of the corridor, a reinforced door blocked the path. The woman tapped its control panel, but the screen only flickered weakly. Cale cleared his throat. "Need help?" "Unless you can interface with Valari encryption systems designed to withstand quantum intrusion, no." Cale cracked his knuckles. "Step aside. I have human hands and low expectations." To her visible bafflement, he smacked the panel 3 times. The door hissed open. She stared at him, stunned. "How?" "Human engineering principle number 1, Cale said. If something doesn't work, hit it until it does. I cannot tell if that is wisdom or madness." "Same here." The door led to a maintenance bay lit by flickering blue lamps. Strange equipment lay scattered, alloy crates, half-disassembled drones, and a hovering device shaped like a floating kitchen appliance having an identity crisis. Cale pointed at it. "Is that a toaster?" "It's a medical drone." "Well, it's burned everything I've ever trusted in a toaster, so the resemblance checks out." The drone sputtered awake at their presence, hovering shakily. It scanned Cale with a bright beam, beeped in alarm, and tried to flee, but only managed to bump into the wall repeatedly until it turned itself off with a pitiful whine. The woman sighed. "The base is worse than I thought." Cale turned to her, suddenly aware she hadn't introduced herself. "So, do you have a name, or should I keep calling you Mysterious Space Elf Who Saves My Life?" She hesitated, as though remembering how names worked. "Leary." "Nice. I'm Cale. You already know I'm human, chronically unlucky, and apparently a monster magnet." Another distant rumble rolled through the walls, closer, heavier, like thunder with intent. Leary stiffened. "It's found the outpost." Cale, who had always prided himself on handling danger with only moderate screaming, swallowed hard. "Okay. Game plan. Options. Please tell me running is one of them." "Running is always one of them," she said. "Especially for you." She led him to a back stairway that descended deeper into darkness. Cale hesitated at the top, peering down. The steps were narrow, uneven, and looked like they might collapse if someone breathed too hard. "Ladies first," he suggested. "No. You first." "Oh, sure. Right." Let the expendable guy test the staircase. He descended, his footsteps echoing softly. At the bottom was a chamber dominated by a massive cylindrical console. Transparent conduits spiraled around it, glowing faintly as they detected new life signs. Leary approached the console, her fingers brushing over its cracked surface. This was the central harmonics relay. It allowed the researchers to study the Caratha's telepathic signatures. And it's still working? Barely. She activated a holo display. The image flickered chaotically but stabilized enough to form a spectral map of neural waves. Cale stared at the swirling pattern of jagged light. Is that the monster's brainwaves? Yes. Why do they look like someone fed static noise into a blender? Because the Carath is not a singular mind. It is layered, fragmented, like a chorus of consciousnesses speaking at once. Cale squinted. So the monster has multiple personalities? No. More like orbiting emotional states. They exist simultaneously. Great, Cale muttered. A giant psychic mood ring that eats people. Leary's expression softened slightly. It does not eat out of malice. It reacts to fear. The Valari came here to study it once, long ago. But when the Council demanded military applications, I refused. They exiled me here before the Carath could be corrupted. Cale blinked. Wait, you got exiled too? For disobedience. So you stood up against your leaders, protected a giant psychic creature, and they dumped you on a nightmare planet. Meanwhile, I leaned on a wobbly statue. That is accurate. Cale threw his hands up. I'm the universe's least impressive criminal. The base suddenly shuddered, violently this time. Metal screeched. Somewhere above, something enormous slammed into the outer wall, sending cracks spiderwebbing down the ceiling. Cale stumbled. Okay, that was close. Really close. How big is this thing? Leary didn't answer. Her eyes were distant, her ears angled sharply toward the sound. It's not attacking. It is searching. Cale rubbed his face. Fantastic. The telepathic nightmare beast is playing hide-and-seek. Then a low, resonant hum filled the chamber. Not impact, not movement, but a psychic vibration that crawled through Cale's bones like icy fingers. He gasped, clenching his teeth. Is that? The Carath, she whispered. It's reaching out. Cale felt a strange pressure in his thoughts, like someone was leafing through the pages of his mind. His memories flickered, childhood moments, his first time piloting a shuttle, accidentally eating a glowing space fruit on a dare, and glowing blue for 2 hours, his humiliation before the Valari Council. The presence hesitated there, lingering. Cale pushed back instinctively, not with intelligence, not with strength, but with a sheer stubborn refusal to collapse under cosmic scrutiny. The presence shifted. Curiosity. Warmth. A trembling, like something ancient trying to remember how emotions worked. Then it recoiled abruptly, as though startled. The psychic pressure vanished. Cale staggered, panting. Did I just mentally yell at a planet-killing beast hard enough to confuse it? Leary stared at him with open astonishment. You didn't collapse. I nearly did. But you resisted. Humans are not supposed to. This isn't possible. Before Cale could respond, a deafening crack split the chamber. The outer wall buckled inward, a fissure opening wide as talons. Massive, black, obsidian-like, gripped the metal from outside. Cale's heart leapt into his throat. Oh no! A glowing eye peered through the fissure, an enormous, swirling star-forged iris that fixed directly on him. Leary seized his arm, pulling him back. Do not move. Do not make noise. Cale nodded stiffly. Not moving. Not making noise. Definitely not screaming. The eye narrowed slightly, its gaze intense, searching. Then, unexpectedly, it blinked. Slowly, almost gently. Cale whispered. Is it waving? It doesn't have eyelids capable of, Leary began, then stopped, watching as the fissure widened and the creature's massive head tilted, examining Cale like a scientist evaluating an unusual specimen. The Carath let out a soft, rumbling note. Kale blinked. Okay, I don't speak monster, but that did not sound murderous. Leary was speechless. The creature's talons relaxed. The wall creaked but did not collapse entirely. The Kareth remained still, its vast presence radiating not aggression, but something eerily close to recognition. Kale raised a hesitant hand. Hi. Leary nearly choked. Are you insane? But the Kareth rumbled again. Lower, warmer. A strange tingling brushed Kale's thoughts, like a curious question without words. Kale swallowed. I think it's not hunting us. Leary stared at him as though witnessing a natural law being rewritten. The Kareth blinked once more, then withdrew from the fissure, its enormous form retreating into the shadows outside, leaving only silence and the faint echo of its presence. Kale exhaled shakily. So, good news. It didn't eat us. Leary continued staring at him, disbelief etched across her features. Kale, it reacted to you. It recognized you. Kale leaned against the damaged console, breathing hard. I don't know why. I don't know how. But I think it's interested. Leary took a slow breath. Then everything the Valari believed about the Kareth is wrong. And everything I believed about my survival chances is also wrong, Kale said. In a good way. Another distant rumble echoed, far away now, almost playful. Kale managed a weak grin. I think the monster likes me. Leary covered her face with both hands. This is either the beginning of salvation, or the end of all logic. Why not both? Kale said. It's been that kind of week. The fissure in the wall stopped groaning, and the base settled into an uneasy, vibrating silence. Kale stood absolutely still, waiting for reality to catch up with what had just happened. It didn't. Reality seemed as confused as he was. Leary paced in front of the cracked console, each step sharp and restless, her long ears flicking in agitation. This should not be possible, she muttered. The Kareth does not approach. It does not observe. It destroys. It overwhelms. It consumes fear until nothing is left. Kale raised a hand. Okay, but hear me out, I am very destroyable. You saw me earlier. I nearly died tripping over a vine. Maybe the Kareth took pity. She stopped pacing and stared at him. It does not pity. Maybe it's just lonely, Kale tried. Big monster. Empty planet. No one to talk to except screaming plants. Kale. Yes. It sought you. Kale coughed. Well, someone has to appreciate me. She resumed pacing, clearly unwilling to entertain the possibility that he had somehow impressed the universe's most feared psychic monstrosity through sheer dumb charisma. There must be a reason. A resonance. A trigger. Kale shrugged. Maybe it's because I yelled at it in my head. Leary froze. You did what? Yeah, it was rummaging around in my memories, and I pushed back. Sort of. Accidentally. She pressed her hands to her temples. Accidentally resisting a telepathic apex predator is not a normal human mistake, Kale. Well, excuse me for improvising. The bass trembled again, softer this time, like the distant thump of a giant creature sitting down. Or lying down. Or something that didn't involve immediate murder. Leary exhaled and leaned heavily against the console. We need to understand what it wants. Kale nodded. Preferably before it decides to check if humans are crunchy. With the Kareth temporarily gone, they explored the deeper levels of the outpost. Emergency lights flickered on as the dormant neural lines sensed movement. Kale kept glancing at the walls, waiting for them to grow a mouth and comment on their walking technique. One hallway led to a chamber filled with towering glass cylinders. Most had shattered long ago, spilling shards across the floor like a frozen ocean. The few intact capsules were fogged from within, shapes curled inside. Non-human shapes Kale had no context for except definitely not cuddly. What were they studying? He whispered. Leary wiped frost from one cylinder, revealing the vague silhouette of a spindly creature with too many limbs and an unfortunate number of mandibles. She sighed. The Valari were fascinated with Obsidian Nine's fauna. They believed that if they understood the ecosystem, they would understand the Kareth. Her voice tightened. They never did. Kale tapped the glass. I can tell you one thing, they were terrible interior designers. She gave him a confused look. Interior? What? This place screams villain lair. Creepy tubes, flickering lights, weird science experiments. Honestly, all we're missing is dramatic music. As if in response, a distant low-frequency hum vibrated the floor. Kale jumped. Okay, too responsive. That was not intentional, she said, but she looked troubled. The hum grew stronger, familiar, resonant, unmistakable. The Kareth is returning, Leary said. We should not be here when it reaches the lower labs. They hurried back toward the central chamber. The lights dimmed as the psychic pressure swelled around them, not hostile but massive, like a tidal wave hovering inches from the shore. Kale steadied himself against a wall. It feels different this time. Leary studied him sharply. Describe it. Less poking. More like calling. Like it's asking if I ate breakfast. That makes no scientific sense. Well, that's what it feels like. Before Leary could argue, the nearest wall bulged inward, metal bending under invisible force, and a circular breach peeled open, revealing the night outside. The Kareth emerged through the gap. Kale had seen glimpses before, but nothing compared to this full, towering presence. Its body was a fusion of biology and mineral, plated with obsidian armor that shifted like living rock. Horn-like spirals jutted from its head. Patterns of starlight flickered beneath its surface, as though a galaxy had been trapped inside. Its enormous wings, if they were wings, unfurled in layers of crystalline shards. Its eyes were the most alien thing Kale had ever seen, vast orbital rings of molten silver, swirling inward to a dark, bottomless core. Leary took a step back. It should not be this close. It should never. But the creature ignored her entirely. Its focus locked on Kale, who felt the psychic presence swirl around him again. Gentler this time, curious, like a massive cosmic hand patting a confused puppy. Kale raised a shaky hand. Hey. Again. The Kareth lowered its head until it filled the breach, its breath a hot, metallic wind washing over him. A whisper touched his mind, not in words but in images. Memories. Concepts. The Kareth's loneliness. Its confusion. The silence of the planet. The centuries without contact. The Valari scientists who tried to control it, manipulate it, fear it into obedience. The pain of being misunderstood. Kale swallowed. It's showing me things. Leary approached cautiously. What do you see? It's not evil, Kale whispered. It's scared, and angry, and tired, and huge. Extremely huge. The creature rumbled softly, the light inside its armor pulsing in a rhythm that felt almost like relief. Leary stared, speechless. It's communicating with you. Kale blinked up at the Titan. Why me, though? I'm just some idiot who broke a statue. The Kareth's psychic tendrils brushed his thoughts again, this time focusing on images of the tribunal, his exile, his defiance, his stubborn refusal to collapse in the face of overwhelming fear. It thinks I'm like it? Kale said hesitantly. Leary's expression tightened. Resilient. Resistant to pressure. Impossible to silence. Kale smirked weakly. So basically, irritating. That is one interpretation. The Kareth lifted its massive head and let out a resonant vibration. A shifting wave of dust rolled across the floor. Kale steadied himself. I think it wants to follow me. Leary staggered. What? The giant Titan crouched lower, an impossible gesture from something so huge, like submission, or request. Kale hesitated, then stepped forward, placing his hand gently against the cold obsidian surface of its plated hide. A psychic surge swept through him, heat, pressure, light, but not painful. Not threatening. Instead it felt like an enormous beast wagging its metaphorical tail. Leary whispered, "Kale, I think you just bonded with it." He blinked. Bonded? You mean, like, a pet? It is not a pet, she said, horrified. Kale patted the giant plate again. Are you a pet? The Kareth rumbled happily enough to send pebbles flying. Leary closed her eyes. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Hey, Kale said, it's not my fault the universe has bad taste. The Kareth shifted, revealing its full stature, a towering, monstrous, awe-inspiring titan, and then, with shocking delicacy, nudged Kale with its massive head. Kale stumbled backward. Okay. Too friendly. Too friendly for my fragile human spine. The titan lowered itself again, waiting. Kale looked at Leary. I think it wants me to ride it? Leary almost choked. Kale. No one rides the Kareth. Well, apparently someone does. Kale approached cautiously, grabbed onto one of the obsidian ridges, and, with far less dignity than he hoped, hauled himself onto the creature's back. Leary stared at him like she had just watched someone rewrite physics by accident. The Kareth rose smoothly, lifting Kale into the air, its psychic presence wrapping around him like a gentle gravitational field, keeping him steady. Kale looked down at Leary with a helpless shrug. So, what now? She swallowed hard. Now everything changes. The Kareth spread its crystalline wings, and with a single tremendous leap, it launched into the obsidian night. Kale clinging to its back, laughter and terror tangled together as they soared above the darkness. Far below, Leary watched them rise, her ears trembling in the cold wind. She whispered to the empty air, "A human has done what the Valari could not. He has tamed the nightmare." And above her, a streak of silver light cut across the ink-black sky, Kale and the Kareth, beginning a legend neither of them was ready for. The ground shuddered beneath Kale's boots as he stepped onto the final ridge overlooking the alien city, if one could call a cluster of shimmering, crooked domes a city. After months trapped on this forsaken world, he'd grown accustomed to many things. The constant smell of ionized air, the eerie glow of bioluminescent vines, and, most disturbingly, the tendency of the ground to twitch like a creature dreaming under his feet. But walking back into the territory of the people who had banished him felt like returning to the scene of a crime he didn't commit, except now he had a very large, very dangerous friend who thought sneaking was optional. Behind him, the Torga, 3 meters of armored muscle, claws, and a surprisingly delicate purr, tried to hide behind a rock the size of a toaster. Its tail stuck out like a giant serrated whip, twitching impatiently. Kale winced. Buddy. Subtlety. We talked about subtlety. The Torga blinked its huge golden eyes at him, tilted its head, and attempted again to hide. This time it crouched behind a spindly tree that immediately snapped under its weight. Kale sighed. Honestly? Good enough. Let's go. He had changed more than he realized during his exile. His uniform, once crisp and formal, had been patched with shimmering alien fabrics, reinforced with plates taken from creatures he once ran from but now knew better than to fear. His beard, once carefully trimmed, was now an unmanageable testament to survival. And inside him, beneath the humor he weaponized like armor, something new and sharp had formed, a spine of steel forged by isolation, fear, and the impossible task of taming the beast that should have killed him. He walked forward, the Torga lumbering behind him, and felt an unexpected calm. He was not returning as a prisoner. Not as a victim. He was returning as someone they had tried, and failed, to erase. Distantly, he heard the hum of defensive shields powering up. The alien guards had spotted him. Well, Kale murmured, patting the Torga's leg. No turning back now. The shield shimmered, parting like liquid light as someone manually disengaged it. A figure stepped through, slender, graceful, with long ears tapering elegantly like the delicate wings of a butterfly carved from living moonlight. Lyra. The alien woman who had secretly defied her own people to help him survive. The one who'd bandaged his wounds, rolled her eyes at his jokes, and told him he wasn't as unbearable as humans were rumored to be. High praise, apparently. She looked stunned now, her violet eyes wide, her hands trembling. "You're alive," she whispered, as though she didn't trust her own senses. Kale grinned. "What, you thought I'd die out there? Please. I'm too stubborn." Her gaze slowly drifted to the towering Torga beside him. The color drained from her face. "And that?" "Friend," Kale said cheerfully. "Mostly. Occasionally tries to eat rocks, sometimes tries to eat me, but we've talked about boundaries." Lyra pressed a hand over her heart as the guards behind her scrambled into defensive stances. "Kale, the Council cannot see this. They will panic." "Lyra," he replied, stepping closer, "they already panicked. That's why they threw me into the wilderness like a snack pack with legs. I'm just returning the courtesy." But when he looked at her, the sharp edges inside him softened. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed her until this moment. The tilt of her smile, the light in her eyes, even the way she seemed constantly exasperated by him. She stepped closer, and her voice lowered. "You shouldn't have come back. And you shouldn't have helped me the first day we met," he whispered back. "But here we are." A blaring horn shattered the moment. The council was assembling, their shimmering robes reflecting the pale blue light of the twin moons above. Kale straightened, feeling the Torga move behind him like a living wall. The council stood in a semicircle, trying, and failing, to disguise their terror. The High Elder stepped forward, his long ears twitching violently. "Human Kale," he announced, "you were exiled for crimes against order. Yet you return with that." Kale rolled his shoulders. "Good to see you too." "You have doomed us all," the Elder continued, voice shaking. "The Torga cannot be tamed. It is a mindless predator born from the ancient void." The Torga sneezed, producing a shockwave that toppled 3 guards. Kale shrugged. "He's got allergies." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lyra covered her mouth to hide a laugh. The Elder, however, was not amused. "This is impossible," he insisted. "No human could accomplish what our people have failed to do for millennia." Kale stepped forward, his voice steady. "Maybe the problem was that you kept trying to kill it. Turns out treating something like a doomed monster makes it behave like one." The murmurs grew louder. Lyra's eyes glistened, not with fear, but with something like pride. Kale exhaled slowly. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came because you're all afraid of something you don't understand. You exiled me thinking it would protect you, but all you did was send me to learn the truth. This planet isn't trying to kill you. It's trying to teach you." The Elder scoffed. "Teach us? What could we possibly learn from a beast?" Kale smirked. "Well, for starters, don't insult him. He takes it personally." The Torga growled. The Elder squeaked. Kale continued, voice deepening. "You banished me thinking I'd disappear. Instead, I learned how to survive, how to fight, how to adapt. And now I'm here to tell you, humans don't break. We evolve." Silence hung heavy in the air. Then Lyra stepped beside him, placing her hand gently on his arm. The gesture spoke volumes: loyalty, defiance, courage. The Elder saw it, and trembled. "You stand with him," he said softly. "I do," she replied. "This is unacceptable." A distant rumble cut him off. The ground heaved. Structures shuddered. Lights flickered. Kale's instincts screamed. The Torga reared, roaring at the sky. "What's happening?" Lyra cried. Kale felt it before he understood it, a familiar pulse, deep and ancient. The same presence he'd sensed in the wild, watching him, evaluating him. "The planet," he breathed. "It's reacting." Cracks of neon blue light split across the ground. Energy surged through the vines, the air, the very stones beneath their feet. The Elder collapsed to his knees. "It awakens," he whispered. "The ancient consciousness. We angered it by failing our duty." Lyra's fingers tightened around Kale's arm. "What do we do?" Kale looked at the Torga, who nodded, an eerie, intelligent motion that sent chills up Kale's back. Slowly, Kale stepped forward, heart pounding. "We make peace," he said. Not with fear. Not with weapons. With understanding. He approached the glowing fissure. Light climbed his body like tendrils of energy reading him, recognizing him. Lyra stood behind him, unwavering. The Torga roared once, long, resonant, respectful. The light flared, then softened. The trembling ceased. The crack sealed, leaving only silence. Kale let out a shaky breath. "Well," he said finally, "that went better than expected." Lyra laughed, a soft, relieved sound. "You did it." "We did it," he corrected. Behind them, the council stared in stunned awe. The elder stepped forward, head bowed. "Human Kale, we were wrong. You have our respect, our gratitude, and our apology." Kale blinked. "Wow. Didn't think I'd hear that today." Lyra nudged him. "Accept it gracefully." Right. Apology accepted." The elder nodded. "You are welcome among us." Kale looked at Lyra, her long ears glowing faintly in the moonlight, her expression soft. He reached for her hand. She didn't hesitate. "Good," he said. "Because I'm not leaving." Her fingers intertwined with his, warm and certain. "Then stay," she whispered. "Not as an exile, but as one of us." The Torga rumbled approvingly. And for the first time since crash landing into the worst day of his life, Kale felt something settle inside him. Peace, belonging, and the strange, wonderful promise of a future he never expected to have. "Yeah," he murmured, smiling at her. "I think I will."